Who was Queen Elizabeth? Chapter 3 The Young Queen. The English people loved Elizabeth. On her first day as Queen, she was carried through the streets of London in a great parade. Despite the cold, everyone in the city gathered outside. People cheered, church bells rang, colorful flags and banners fluttered along her route. Music groups and troupes of actors performed on special stages as the Queen passed by. Elizabeth stopped again and again to greet people and thank them. What was the Queen's progress? Elizabeth liked to meet and greet her people. Most people lived in the countryside, so every summer the Queen left London and took a long trip visiting different towns throughout England. She must have enjoyed escaping from London, which was crowded, smelly, and often unhealthy in the summer. The Queen did not pack lightly. She travelled with more than 400 wagons and 2,500 pack horses. Along her route, the Queen stopped to greet her people. Elizabeth always found a way to show her love for them. Once, she stood in the rain to watch a little boy perform for her. Elizabeth stayed at the homes of the nobility. Each family tried its hardest to impress the Queen. Plays, banquets, and fireworks would go on for days. This was costly for noble family but worth the honor of playing host to the Queen. Later, there was a great banquet at Whitehall Palace. All members of the court were invited. 800 guests attended. Dancing and feasting went on for hours. At one point at night, rode into the hall on his horse. To show his love for the Queen, he threw down his glove. That act was a challenge. If any knight was disloyal to the Queen, he had to fight the knight on horseback. No one wanted to fight, of course. The next day, Elizabeth woke in Whitehall Palace. It was just one of her new homes. She had many different palaces all over England, but most of the time was spent at Whitehall Palace. Whitehall was already hundreds of years old, but Elizabeth's father had made improvements, adding arenas for tournaments and cockfights as well as tennis courts. Nevertheless, the rough stone walls of the castle made the room cold and damp. The only warmth came from roaring fires in giant fireplaces. There was no electricity, running water, or modern heat systems back then. Even during the day, rooms were dark. There were no large windows because they let in drafts. Also, glass was expensive. Hundreds of candles were needed to provide light during the day as well as at night. Still, Elizabeth lived a life of luxury compared with that of her subjects. Most people worked on farms in the countryside and lived in two-room homes. Brick and stone were expensive, so the walls and roof of the houses were strengthened with a mixture of clay and straw. Straw roofs kept houses warm, but they could catch fire easily. Rats and other creatures often made their homes in the straw too. It was hard work to just survive. Because there was no electricity, people awoke with the sunrise and worked until nightfall. Anything that could not be grown or made by hand was bought at the weekly town market. Even young children shared household chores. The Queen certainly did not have to do chores. She had servants, lot of servants. It took many people to keep a castle running. Wood was brought in for the fires. Water was pumped from wells and carried inside. A team of cooks and kitchen workers prepared the royal meals. The Queen had servants to clean up. After all, she had servants to make her bed, clean her room, and empty her chamber pot. There was no plumbing for toilets. Practically wherever she went, Elizabeth was surrounded by her ladies in waiting. These were young unmarried women from noble families. It was their job to take care of all Queen's personal needs. They bathed and dressed her. They kept her company while she read or played music. It was a great honor to be a lady in waiting. No payment was given. It might seem to the average person that the Queen had an easy life, but Elizabeth said to wear a crown is more glorious to them than it is a pleasure to them that bear it. What she meant was that being a ruler, the person who wore the crown, was difficult. She knew her citizens depended on her for their safety and well-being to protect them from enemies. As Queen Elizabeth had a great deal of power, the Queen could make laws and declare wars. However, a lot of money was needed. Money came through taxes. To raise taxes, Elizabeth had to consult Parliament. Parliament was made up of the House of Commons, members from the lower class or common people, and the House of Lords. Elizabeth decided when to meet with the Parliament and what would be discussed. In all the 44 years she was Queen, she called Parliament into session only 10 times. Instead, she relied on a group of advisers. They made up the Privy Council. What is the Privy Council? On important matters, Elizabeth turned to a group of men known as the Privy Council. They gave the king or queen advice about war, taxes, and knew of other countries which rulers were friendly to England and which weren't. The Secretary of State was made the important person on the Privy Council. Elizabeth chose William Cecil for the job. Cecil had been Elizabeth's accountant and the two were great friends. Together, Elizabeth and Cecil became a powerful team. He was 38 years old when he started working for the Queen. He remained with her for 40 years. Until the day he died, Elizabeth was always demanded the truth from Cecil, even if it was bad news. Being Queen presented danger. There had been many plots against Queen Mary. Although Elizabeth was far more popular than Mary, she knew she had enemies. One member of Elizabeth's Privy Council, Sir Francis Walsingham, served as her eyes and ears. Elizabeth wanted to know everything, and Walsingham had spies all over Europe. He paid them for any news of plots against the Queen. Elizabeth did not really like Walsingham, but Walsingham was very loyal to her. He even spent his own money to pay for the spies. Just as for her father had, Elizabeth slept in a bedroom right next to the room where the council met. Many times Elizabeth called the council in the middle of the night. Her advisers had to be ready at night at the moment to serve their queen. That is it for today, guys. I wouldn't like to bore you by creating a whole 1 to 2 hours of this video. If you would like to continue, check out the description box down below to continue with the next chapter, which titles Always the Same.